Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show Championship Week edition. And what we're going to get into is some of our league champions, show you how they did it, what teams they've got, and then go through some of the games this week as well. So let's get right to it. We all had a lot of fun this week, right? Everybody following me, we all made our championship games, right? Yeah. No, I know how it goes. It was a rough week for me having 5 teams in championship games. I think I'm going to win 3. So 2 of them, better luck next year, right? It's out of the 12 semifinals that I had. Yeah, it was an interesting week, we'll put it that way. But my boy Baker came through in the one that I needed him to, and he took my Bucks to a 48-14 shellacking of the Carolina Panthers. And why don't we get started right up in with that one here? Yeah, we'll bring it up. Okay. So Baker getting things done like he has all year. Saved his best for last year. 5 touchdowns with 359 yards on 27 of 32 passing for a 153 QBR. Oof. It's tough to top that. Yes, Bucky Irving added in 113 on the ground, 4 for 77 through the air for Bucky. It was Bucks Day. That's right. Mike Evans caught 2 touchdowns to go along with his 97 yards on his way to chasing that 1,000-yard destiny. See how close Big Mike is now. Evans is sitting at 915 yards, just needs 85 yards in the final week. And he will have his 11th straight 1,000-yard season for the surefire Hall of Famer. Now, on the Panthers side, not much going on. If you were scrambling late, you were going with Blackshear or Mike Boone at running back. Adam Thielen came through, though, for many of you who had to start him. I shouldn't say had to start him. I mean, I was seeing many people saying to start Thielen over some other more trusted options during the season. But Thielen had shown going through the season that he was trusted by Bryce Young, and Young needed that, especially when he came back from being benched. And so that developed into a great fantasy scoring relationship for many of us who may have had Thielen. Now, going into next season, he's obviously somebody, again, you could get for super cheap. I mean, he was going for a 4th rounder. Some people couldn't even get rid of him for a 4th rounder this past off season. So just goes to show it's never a bad idea throwing 4th rounders at veterans, wily veterans like Adam Thielen. Because the reality in Dynasty is that if you get one start, just one start out of a guy that you traded a 4th rounder for, it's all worth it. Because most 4th rounders that we pick in our drafts, most 4th round rookies, barely even see the field in a real NFL game, let alone in our fantasy lineups. All right. So that's just something to note. And I know that Adam Thielen seems super ugly, and we're going to have a whole off season of Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker, JT Sanders there looking great. But if Thielen is still there, I don't know what his contract is, but if he's still there, or he goes somewhere else regardless. He's somebody that isn't a bad buy at a fourth round price for sure. All right. Back to Tampa though, Jalen McMillan showing up with a couple touchdowns again, 5 for 51. He's looking strong. Now, I don't know if that means that the Bucks will not re-sign Chris Godwin because of McMillan's emergence here, but we'll see. There's still another regular season game and hopefully a playoff game at least for Tampa. So we'll see there with McMillan. Payne Durham filled in nicely for Kate Otten there, got a touchdown. No hologram for Payne Durham, though. All right. Next up, let's just go back right down the list, right? We'll go back to Christmas Day here. Yes. And the Chiefs, Steelers, and it was Patrick Mahomes Day. That's right. For all of you who have Mahomes and started him in your lineups, despite this tough matchup against the Steelers, kudos to you. And I'm talking about me. That's right here. I started him in the bottom line league along with Justin Herbert, and we pulled it out. I'm a co-owner in that league. We pulled it out, taking on a tough opponent with Saquon Barkley. Anthony couldn't quite get it done. I know there's still, I think we still have Amon-Ra going tonight, and we are safely in the lead here. Yes, we can show you right here. Here we go. And can I bring the matchup over? Okay, maybe not. But anyway, my tough decision in this league was at quarterback. I had to decide between Mahomes at Pittsburgh on Christmas Day, Herbert on Saturday, the noon game at New England. Not a terrible matchup, but not overwhelmingly phenomenal, right? It was in New England, so there could be weather issues, whatever. And then Sam Darnold at home against the Packers in the highlighted late Sunday afternoon game. So the Packers D isn't exactly daunting. Okay, so we'll just put it that way. But regardless, went with the top two players, regardless of matchup, and that was Mahomes and Herbert, and it paid off. I mean, the reality is just like last week, where all three of the guys scored 26 or 27 points. This week, Mahomes had 31, Herbert had 28, and Darnold had 31. So I guess I should have started Darnold over Herbert, but you know what? It's not going to cost me because I'm up by 27 with Amon-Ra to go. And so it will be back to back championships in the bottom line league. That's right. But back to the Chiefs, who are shooting for back to back championships. We will bring that back up. Here's the box score. Yes. So part of the recent emergence of Patrick Mahomes has to do with the recent emergence of Xavier Worthy, who went 8 for 79 with a touchdown on 9 targets. Travis Kelce doing his thing, 8 for 84 on 11 targets. So Hollywood Brown getting into the action here, 4 for 46 on 7 targets. So the Chiefs Kingdom looking strong here. I can't wait to see who takes them out in the playoffs because they ain't going to the Super Bowl. Know that. All right. On the Steelers side of things, well, didn't matter much that George Pickens came back. They just couldn't get things going offensively. On the ground, they were all right, 13 of 74 for Najee and 11 for 71 for Jalen Warren. But all in all, not much really going on there. And you had Pickens just getting 3 for 50. Fryermuth 7 for 60. Not bad days, but once again, big thing here was in your championships. If you played Mahomes, you were rewarded nicely. Yes. All right. Other game on Christmas pitted the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. And this one, the Texans might as well just stay at home because they got a bag of coal for this one. And yeah, it was all Ravens. The King, Derrick Henry, 27 for 147 and a touchdown. Added 18 yards through the air, so 165 total yards for the King. Lamar Jackson padding his MVP resume with 168 yards and 2 touchdowns passing. Excuse me. Added 87 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So, yes, him and Josh Allen are going toe to toe for MVP. As far as fantasy MVPs go, I have no problem going with Lamar Jackson. He was so consistent all season long. I know on the teams that I have him, it was phenomenal to have him aboard all season long. As for the Texans, CJ Stroud could go down as one of the MVPs, as in not valuable player. CJ Stroud, as you all might remember in the Birdhouse here, was one of the biggest non buys I had. I had him as a sell if you had him all off season. Thought he was overrated or just artificially evaluated. That's all. To pump him up to quarterback 3 this past off season was just insane. And it's going to show, even with Joe Mixon coming in and taking over the offense really with the run game. And then Nico going down midway through the year, followed by Stephon Diggs injury. So it hasn't been a great season for Stroud. Now, does this present a high opportunity going into 2025? That's something we can definitely discuss this offseason. I'm sure that a Houston Texans run in the playoffs would help his value, meaning that it would hurt the opportunity to trade for him in the offseason. So if he doesn't do well in the playoffs, it actually bodes well for trading for him. Just keep that in mind. I don't know that Diggs will be back next year. I doubt it. But I know Nico and Tank Dell with the unfortunate injury in the previous matchup on what day was that? Saturday, right? The awful injury. So yeah, we're gonna have to see how well Tank Dell recovers from that injury. The Texans are definitely gonna they did sign Deontay Johnson. I don't know that means that he'll still be there next year either, but that would be a simple 1-for-1 replacement for Stephon Diggs. I don't know that Deontay Johnson's as good as Stephon Diggs. He's looked the part. From my perspective, I would definitely buy into it at the price because Deontay Johnson has the skill set to be the over the middle guy for Stroud all season long, barring injury. So Deontay Johnson right now to I've seen him cut. All right. Now, granted, that may have been in a best ball league where they needed points instead of a 0, but man, he's borderline cuttable for me on one of my championship rosters. I'm actually in the championship, but I'm going to lose unless Jahmyr Gibbs scores like 75 points tonight. But yeah, It could happen. Alvin Kamara scored 6 touchdowns in championship week 1 year, right? Um, but yeah, back to Deontay Johnson. He is definitely a nice potential buy this offseason as a whatever third, fourth rounder if he's staying in Houston. We'll see where he lands though after this season concludes. As for the Ravens receiving chops there, Mark Andrews 2 for 68 and a touchdown, got home. Zay Flowers did not, just 2 for 31 for you. So a disappointing performance there from Zay for anybody who had him. Nico as well, just 3 for 59. So um, that's unfortunate. I didn't see Nico in too many championship lineups though. Part of it just due to the struggles with the injury. I mean, the guy misses 5 or 6 games for you with that much uh, riding on him. It's tough to overcome somebody like Nico being out that long. Just really tough. All right, let's see. Now to the Thursday night game, and yuck, yuck, yuck. Why did they even play this one? I mean, I can't believe I did a primer for this game. Just disgusting. All around, any Seahawks or Bears you had, I'm sorry. If I told you to start them, I'm sorry that this game even happened. Honestly, the Seahawks came out on top 6-3. There was literally no good fantasy performances at all, unless you count 4 for 43 for a tight end from Noah Fant. That would be about it. Everybody else, Kenny Walker didn't play. Swift and Charbonnet were meh. The receiving cores for both these teams who have tons of talent just completely shit the bed. I mean, ouch. This was a rough one to take. I had DK and JSN. I fortunately we did put in Drake London late. We switched him in for DK, which actually ended up being better. But going forward here, you could see with Seattle's offense, the transformation of JSN going to the wide receiver 1A, DK Metcalf 1B. Now, I don't know how much you want to read into this. My point is don't read too far into it. I remember a couple of years ago when Chris Godwin in his second year had his monster blow up season where he was wide receiver 2 and everybody thought that he had overtaken Mike Evans as the top dog in Tampa. And since then, we know that Godwin hasn't quite gotten back to that level. Now, the first half, he was a top 5 wide receiver. So he had it in him the whole time. It was just a matter of, injuries and situations like with Brady coming in and bringing in Antonio Brown, stealing some touches there. It just wasn't back in the cards for Godwin to finish as a top 2 or 3 wide receiver again until this year when they installed the Rams offense and put him in the Cooper Kupp role. Godwin is dominating. Now it's a big thing to see this offseason how that works out. In Tampa, if they re-sign Godwin, in Seattle, you'll still have JSN and DK. So I would expect, DK has the build and the potential to somewhat be like a Mike Evans. But his numbers are quite there. I mean, Evans has multiple seasons over 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns. So DK's not quite there, but JSN isn't quite to the level that Godwin was either. So both of them need to step it up. I mean, this offense truly rides and dies with them because for the running game, it doesn't matter who's back there, whether it's Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet. If the running game is going, the running game's going. Either of those dudes can blow up. But the the disappointing second half from DK after his injury has just been magnified here going into with this championship game. So I'm glad I didn't have him in the lineup, and we'll see going forward what it has in store at quarterback for this team. Um, whether Gino resigns, Sam Howell comes back, or they go a different route. Um, with Brian Grubb there, he ran a pretty solid offense, I have to say, for the first half of the season. But second half of the season, it seemed to go a little downhill. And now with the tiebreaker between the Seahawks and the Rams, even if the Seahawks beat the Rams in week 18, the Rams are going to win the division based on strength of schedule and some of the teams that won today or yesterday. So Seattle can now no longer get into the playoffs. It doesn't mean that they won't try. I'm sure they're going to be out there trying. But needless to say, this Thursday night game was a puker. All right. We'll get into Saturday's games here. A little more excitement. And the Chargers taking on the Patriots. Justin Herbert showing up. 281, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 2 touchdowns to Ladd, who finished 8 for 94 and 2 TDs. Man, has just blown up. I mean, it's got to be easily top 20, top 15-ish dynasty wide receiver. I got to update my dynasty rankings. I haven't in about 10 days. So I got to look at where I've got Ladd. I mean, where would you go, Ladd McConkey or JSN? That's a good dynasty question. I think it comes down to more, who are you able to get to Ladd plus from? Like, how far down do you want to go? If you can do JSN for Ladd plus, obviously, right? Do you want to go from AJ Brown down to Ladd plus something? Those are the kind of questions you got to look at with Ladd McConkey this offseason. Now, he's going to be hard to pry from whoever drafted him and hung on to him all this season, because they obviously love the guy now and they know he's a value. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic there with Ladd McConkey. McConkey's somebody I could definitely see being involved in a lot of bigger deals, not as just a throw-in, but as an addition to. So if you're going for a top dog wide receiver, Chase Jefferson type, I could see a running back and Ladd plus some picks going in that type of deal, right? And I don't mind making that type of deal with the way Ladd's put up numbers this year. Gives me only hope. Now, I don't know how high his ceiling actually is, because this offense is still run by Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh. And so, Justin Herbert isn't somebody that's going to be throwing for 5,000 yards here too soon. All right. You can expect 3,500 to 4,000 yards from Herbert going forward. I don't know where he's at. Let's take a look here. With one game to go on the season, Justin Herbert's at 35-24 with 21 touchdowns and nice solid 99.9 quarterback rating. So, this is pretty much what I would think is the peak for a Jim Harbaugh quarterback, throwing the ball at least. And, Herbert added a few touchdowns on the ground as well. So just a great all-around season so far for Herbert. We'll see how he does in the playoffs, though, because that's where legends are made, and that's where he needs to step up if he wants to be considered in the elite. Now, I did look at the Keep Trade Cut rankings. Herbert is now seventh at quarterback, right behind Mahomes. Um, so that's interesting to watch over this offseason. Uh, because anybody who has Herbert, I don't think they're going to want to easily let him go. Put it that way. Drake May, the other side there, just 12 for 22 for a buck 17 and a touchdown. That touchdown went to Pop Douglas, who had 4 for 46 and the touchdown. Ramondre puked for y'all out there who were starting him in championship week. I'd have to look. I don't know if he get injured. I mean, I honestly, I was not. I was busy on Saturday after Christmas, and so I was not watching all of this game. I was following it, but I didn't see an injury here. He was effectively benched. Yeah, so that's interesting and something to keep an eye on for this offseason. What the Patriots decide to do with their backfield, considering all things considered here, with them just giving him a fresh new contract and everybody being excited this past off season about him. I don't know if there's an out in his deal, but I'm certain it's not after just one season. All right. Back to the scoreboard here. Second game on Saturday had this was the big one on Saturday. Denver visiting Cincinnati. Cincinnati clawing for their playoff lives, and they pulled this one out in overtime, 30-24. Just a great back and forth battle between Burrow and Bo Nix here. It was Burrow coming down, throwing a touchdown to Higgins, and Bo Nix coming back. Had two big touchdowns to Marvin Mims. So Marvin Mims kind of on the radar, I guess. It'll be interesting to see what Denver does with the weapons for Bo Nix this offseason. Nix has been a monster, just an absolute savior for some teams, who had him as their third or fourth quarterback, and now he's emerged as like a top 10 to 12 fantasy quarterback. Joe Burrow just blazing 412 yards, 3 touchdowns, all 3 to T. Higgins, 131 on 11 catches for T, 9 for 102 for Chase. So both Bengals receivers getting home, but not in the normal way. Usually it's Chase, the one that's blowing up. Here in championship week, it was T. Higgins. And so those of you who had Higgins in your lineups, definitely reaping the benefits this championship week. Mike Gesicki, 10 for 86. Not a bad showing there either. And Chase Brown didn't quite do everything we wanted there. Didn't get in the end zone, just 20 carries for 67 yards and 4 for 24 through the air. Now, Denver's backfield is something to watch. We got Jaleel McLaughlin going 10 for 69 this week, but it seems like every week there's somebody new. Javonte Williams didn't even, well, he did see the field, got 2 targets there, but yuck. I don't know that that's somebody. I mean, he's going to be super cheap this off season, but the name brand, I think he's somebody that you could more so throw into a deal. I don't know that I'd be going out to trade. I guess it depends where he ends up going, but anywhere he goes, he's going to have a battle on his hands. And, he's the type of build that's definitely a solid third down back for anybody. I just think that him and Sean Payton didn't mix. And so as of now, you're looking at McLaughlin and Estime in the backfield, but then you got this hyped up 25 rookie class of running backs. So It'd be interesting to see what happens in Denver. Same with Cincinnati. Do they continue to roll with Chase Brown? They still have Zach Moss there. And how early, if they do they draft a running back, or do they just continue to give the keys to Chase Brown in their backfield? We'll see. All right. Next up, we'll do the Saturday nightcap, which was not too exciting. Not a whole lot going on here other than Matt Stafford doing another stinker. For those of you, myself included, who had Stafford in a few leagues, just 17 of 32 for a buck 89, no touchdowns, no picks. Did throw the ball to Puka plenty, though. 10 for 129 for Puka. So over these past few weeks where Stafford struggled, Puka has still scored well for you. Cooper Kupp, on the other hand, just. And then Kyron Williams doing all right, 56 yards and a touchdown, getting 3 for 16 through the air. On the Cardinals side, it was Trey McBride all day, all night, 12 for 123, getting his touchdown. Yes, let's give it up for Trey McBride. Finally, Trey McBride gets into the end zone. Now, this is a guy. Let me tell you about a guy. This is a guy. Trey McBride. Trey McBride had big numbers in college, but he did not have big touchdown numbers. I don't even know if he scored 10 touchdowns total in college. And so gets to the NFL and he starts producing same way, monster target share, everything that. But you can see here, when we scroll down, I'll show. Okay, look at that touchdown. Nothing. Finally, they did a tight end screen, got him into the end zone. So good for McBride. It's just funny how some guys are not red zone threats. Like, he's a true inside the 20s guy. And tell you what, I don't mind it, because if they work on this in the off season, like, think about Travis Kelce, right? How many of his touchdowns over the last 2-3 seasons, how many of them have come in a similar fashion to how Trey McBride scored his touchdown this week? And so if they can implement some of that into the game plan, it will draw some attention away from Marvin Harrison and Wilson and some of the other receiving threats for the Cardinals. I think they could really, really help establish their red zone offense, which they've struggled with over the last few years. Kyler hasn't been the most efficient guy in the red zone. And so we'll see if they are able to develop this. They're not getting into the playoffs. And so going forward between McBride and Harrison, I'll see as a buy low this offseason, just because of the disappointment. 6 for 96. Now, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I remember getting Calvin Johnson on just about every team I could, because after his rookie season, Calvin Johnson, the number 2 overall pick of his draft, Calvin Johnson had a disappointing rookie season. Now, disappointing in the realm that A, he had no quarterback, and then B, he didn't have quite the target share that people were looking for. I think he only had like 50 catches for 800 yards and maybe 4 touchdowns rookie season. So just look at that and put it in perspective of what Marvin Harrison just has accomplished this rookie season so far. I mean, it's not like he's awful. 822 and 7 touchdowns. The thing is that he just hasn't been. He just he wasn't Malik Neighbors of September, and he wasn't Brian Thomas Jr. of all season, basically. So that's the problem with Marv, is that he had Neighbors and BTJ in his class, and they both outscored him. So now it looks like he's not as good, but the reality is that, in my opinion, Marv is still easily top 10 dynasty asset at the wide receiver position. So that's where I'm at on him. You can put him wherever you want. If you want to make him 20th, go ahead and trade him away. That's a player call. And I am, not I am trying to be player agnostic. I'm looking at profiles and I'm seeing a super talented wide receiver here, super young, that hasn't unlocked his potential yet. Now, the way that potential will get unlocked is if him and Kyler are doing tons of reps this off season. Now, that could be his downfall, but not his own. That'd be more on Kyler, but we'll see. Kyler realizes what he's got in Marvin Harrison or not, because that'd be just a sick waste of talent, in my opinion, if Marvin Harrison doesn't put up Pro Bowl caliber numbers in his second season. All right, let's get to some of the Sunday games now. We'll start off with the stampede of the Jets by the Bills. It was Josh Allen all day, all night. 2 touchdown passes, 182 yards through the air. Another touchdown on the ground for Josh Allen. Him and Lamar put up similar numbers this week. So they're basically in a dead heat right now, in my opinion, in the MVP race. Let's bring up the box score here. There we go. So Josh Allen there, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, another touchdown on the ground. James Cook getting in the end zone, 53 yards. Didn't catch anything. Let me double check just to make sure on that. Doesn't look like he did. Yeah, no catches for Cook, which is interesting, but the emergence of Ty Johnson and Ray Davis in that backfield has made it a full good for real football backfield, but not good for our fantasy teams. Then as for the receiving core there, Allen spread it around. His touchdowns went to Cooper and Keon Coleman. Mitch Trubisky came in late and threw a bomb to Tyrell Shavers, who caught a 69-yarder there. Just to add insult to injury there for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, I'm real sorry if you started him. Man, let's take a look here at Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Whew. Yuck. Him and Brees Hall both. Same with Devontae Adams. People with Devontae were hoping for good things. So let's look at the Jets as a whole, right? It starts and ends with Rodgers, really, because do they have Rodgers as their quarterback next season? That's the first thing. Second of all, they got to decide what they're doing with their backfield. Are they going to keep Brees Hall for the long haul, or are they going to let him go? Are they going to let him walk? For Brees Hall's sake, he probably hopes he walks, because he could find a team like Philly did with DeAndre Swift, that helps propel him, or I should say more so like Philly did with Saquon, because I think Brees Hall is more talented than DeAndre Swift, but unfortunately right now that's really all he is. And if you go through another season with Rodgers at the helm, it depends on the head coach as well, what kind of offensive system comes into play there. But it's going to be hard for Rodgers to leave the Jets just because of the money situation, but it can be worked out. That'll be one of the more interesting storylines this offseason because the Jets have so many high-end fantasy assets for us in Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson and even Devontae Adams still. There's so many high-end assets there that it'll directly affect them based on whether Rodgers is there or not. So my gut says that Rodgers will be there. And so that's the way I would play things out if I'm looking to make deals involving these Jets assets. Braylon Allen is a sneaky little buy. So is Isaiah Davis. They're both super cheap. Third rounders should easily get it done. But that's not going to really pay off until 2026. So I don't know that I'm really looking to do that with the running back situation. So regardless, point being, it'll be an interesting offseason for the New York Jets and one to definitely watch. Aaron Rodgers, I don't think will retire. He's not going to go off in the sunset after a season like this. But who knows? It's not up to me. It's up to what the darkness decides, I guess, right? Meanwhile, the Bills will move on and they will be in the playoffs and definitely one of the main contenders for the Chiefs to make it to another Super Bowl. All right. Raiders, Saints. Let's get through this one quick because there's really fewer starting guys in this game. Now, I understand if you had Brock Bowers, fine. But and Jacoby Myers maybe too. Now I've benched Jacoby Myers in one of my lineups for Keenan Allen. Was it? I can't remember. No, I put Drake London back in. That's right. So that ended up okay, but still. Myers had an all right game, 5 for 61 with a touchdown. Now, this is a team we'll expect to have a new quarterback next season. Aiden O'Connell has been all right. I just don't know. Kind of depends on the coaching staff. They got to determine that first and then take a look at what they have with O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. I don't see that as a championship pedigree type quarterback room. So I think that you're going to get a situation here with the Raiders where you get a new head coach and a new quarterback coming in at the same time. Now, if we quickly box score here, you can see Brock Bowers 7 for 71, Jacoby Myers 5 for 61. Amir Abdullah was the hero for some in their championships as he rumbled for 115 yards, got another 32 on the ground. So solid performance for somebody who is worth absolutely nothing just a few weeks ago. And that's how the running back position rolls. That's why you always want to have the bottom couple of spots on your roster available to churn and burn for running backs that you can pick up randomly during the season, especially late in the year when you've got all these running backs just sitting out. Like Chuba Hubbard came out of nowhere with an injury that put him on IR. There was just multitudes of craziness with injuries this last week, and trying to shuffle that with all the holiday action going on. I know I was super busy with family stuff, and it was just really hard to follow along and keep it straight. It's very nice to have the auto sub option on Sleeper. I commend them for doing that. If your league did not use that option, I would strongly suggest you talk to your commissioner and try and get it set up, because this was I look at this week and I see that Sleeper did this potentially for this week, especially because with games on Wednesday, then Thursday, then Saturday, then Sunday, and then Monday. You had 5 different days that there were games this week, and it was impossible to predict some of these injuries with guys listed at questionable. You got a guy that's questionable on a Monday night or Sunday night. For instance, last night there was trying to think Drake London in particular. Drake London was somebody who I put into my starting lineup but had an auto sub on for him. Now it only seemed fair seeing as like if you actually own the player, you should be able to start him, right? You shouldn't take a 0, especially in the championship game, just because well, his game happened to be later in the week than this other guy. So I mean, that's why personally I'm a fan of the auto sub. I'm a fan of the auto sub going retroactive. Some people just like the auto sub where it puts in somebody in that game or a game later. I like the auto sub where you can retroactively put in. So, like if I had Jacoby Myers, for instance, who played earlier in the day on Sunday, Drake London in the night game, I was able to use Jacoby Myers as my auto sub for Drake London. All right. I don't see the problem with it. Why do you have to be so technical that you have to no, that's no, that's ridiculous. Come on, this is 20th century here. Let's let guys fill their lineups with their best players. Okay. I mean, I don't know if it's too much best ball talking here, but I just feel like if you own the guy, you should be able to start him regardless of when his game was during the week. That's my thought on auto sub. And so if you don't like it, you don't have to play that way. I mean, that's why there's different leagues for different people, right? But that's where I'm at on it. I'm also become a proponent of the no trade deadline. I know some people don't like it because they feel like it can ruin a championship run. Like you've done all your work all season, and then somebody comes in late and steals. Well, you just kind of have to adapt to it. It means that you have to try and save some draft picks to make moves in the fantasy playoffs. If you're in the playoffs, you have to have some draft picks in the chamber to make moves. Otherwise, somebody else is going to steal guys from you. And so you have to maybe play a little differently, right? Because you don't have to make that move in week 4 or 5. You can try and just play out the string, get into the playoffs. We all know we love having a bye, so we don't have to play that first week of the playoffs. But sometimes you've got to. And I've won plenty of championships, winning 3 games instead of just 2. So it almost seems like a curse getting that bye sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. Those are 2 things that I'm a big proponent of for all my leagues, trying to get the auto sub universal as well as no trade deadline as well, because I just feel like the way the dynasty leagues have gone for me in the leagues that I'm in for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years now, there's become such a division. And I don't mean just players wise, because obviously the top end teams have the better players and the bottom teams don't. But some of these bottom teams don't even have decent draft capital. Like their overall team value is so low. Like it's not like here. It's more like there's 3, 4 teams up here, and then there's 1 or 2 teams on the very, very bottom, and it's going to be very tough for them to even sniff competitive teams in the next year or 2. And by being able to trade somebody like Amir Abdullah for a second rounder would be huge for a bottom level team. You know, Amir Abdullah is somebody who is free, absolutely, right? You could have gotten something for Blackshear this week. I mean, there is endless opportunity. with the no trade deadline. And so I'm a big proponent of it because I am one for parity. Yeah, I want to win every league I'm in, but parity is important in these dynasty leagues. You want to keep other owners involved. You don't want them dropping out, especially when they're on the bottom. And then you have this scenario where you have teams that nobody wants to take over. All right. That's what ruins dynasty leagues. So, people, I know you all want to win. Yes, winning is absolutely the most important thing, but you also want to keep a league together for years. That's what makes it fun. Right. Let's move on because there isn't much else to talk about with the Saints and Raiders. That's for sure. All right. Now we got this one. This game. Whew, man, I was so close to putting Joe Flacco into my lineup. Ugh, I have now. It's not. It's not like it's going to cost me because I'm down by 75. So the difference between Joe Flacco and who was the who's the other guy I was debating? I had three guys. It was Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, or Flacco, Pickett, or Michael Penix. Yes. I rolled out Penix because I also had Drake London on that team. So I was hoping to catch lightning in a bottle there. Now, London didn't do terrible. 5 for 106 is by no means terrible, but think about if he caught 2 touchdowns there. You know, you add 2 touchdowns to Penix total, that would have been another 24, 25 points. So then I'd be more likely to have a shot here. So that's the route I was taking. Now, Flacco did put up like 30. So yeah, it would have gotten me 17 more points, but you know, I was going into Sunday behind the 8 ball because the guy I was playing against had Joe Burrow and he had a good lead on me. Now, interestingly, this league we still play defenses. He had the Cowboys D who got him -10, and I had this Colts D who had -8 for me. So um, that didn't help out. I gained 2 points there somehow because this Colts D was just putrid, allowing 4 touchdowns and 309 to Drew Lock, who last week cost me games to the Falcons defense. So I was hoping this week it turned the table. Not so much. Yeah. Drew Lock screwed me again. But thankfully, if you had Malik Neighbors out there, he did not screw you. 7 for 171 for the Rook, 2 touchdowns, just an absolute monster championship performance for Malik Neighbors. And he just continues this amazing first season in the NFL here. Let's bring up Nate for you. There we go. So now if we scroll down to Neighbor's most recent games, hadn't been phenomenal, but 7 for 171. Nobody's crying about that. Just goes to show, I mean, he only had 8 targets this week and still was able to be just a monster. And over on the Colts side, Jonathan Taylor didn't quite do what he did in the semifinals, um, but still had 125 and 2 touchdowns. So anybody riding JT got to be happy. Alec Pierce, best ball man, 6 for 122 and a touchdown. Pittman 9 for 109 and a touchdown. Anybody who's hanging on to Pittman was gleefully rewarded. Any Colts that you had, just about Josh Downs, not so much this week, but um, yeah, Joe Flacco obviously was better for the Colts receivers, and in this case, is Jonathan Taylor as well. Now for the Giants, Tyron Tracy, 20 for 59. We'll see if he also had 2 for 14 through the air. Tyron Tracy's an interesting offseason. He's somebody I would be selling early because I don't buy that the Giants will just hang on to him as the lead dog in their backfield. Still have Singletary there, and then they probably will draft someone. So um, Tracy's somebody who I could see lose significant value in this offseason coming up. Wandell Robinson, you can see there, 5 for 71 and a touchdown. Maybe try and sell off on that performance. Well, right. Next up, we've got only got a few more games here to talk about. Yes, we'll get into Saquon here. And so Saquon on his quest to beat Eric Dickerson's record. He is just 101 yards shy of breaking the record. 100 yards would tie it. Got 167 this week on the ground and 31 carries. Devonta Smith, 2 touchdowns, 120 yards as well. So even without Jalen Hurts, the Eagles were able to just steamroll the Cowboys here. Cooper Rush with a poor performance. Rico Dowdle got over 100 yards somehow. But the rest of you know, Tolbert got a touchdown late there. Uh, AJ Brown added a touchdown to kind of save his day. It was a rough one otherwise. But yeah, main thing here is Saquon is on pace. He just needs 101 yards to break Eric Dickerson's record. Now, going into the off season, should be an interesting take on Saquon. He's 27 right now. He'll be going on 28, coming off what will be most likely his career year. I see that as a selling opportunity. But, if your roster build is there where you're a contender and whether you won it this year or not with Saquon, if you're a contender and Saquon's the main piece in that, it's going to be hard to sell him. All right. So that's something definitely to watch this off season. All right. Just a couple more games here. Jacksonville, Tennessee. This one was pretty ugly. Mac Jones, 2 touchdowns. Mason Rudolph, touchdown and a pick. Nothing going on in the Jags backfield. Brian Thomas Jr., though, 7 for 91 and a touchdown. Just continuing his amazing rookie season for you. And this should be something that'll be quite interesting in the offseason is where Brian Thomas Jr. is ranked. I mean, you could honestly rank him right there next to Nico Collins if you want, and I wouldn't blame you. But at the same time, you've got is there really a question mark at quarterback with Trevor Lawrence? I doubt it. He's going to be the guy. I think the main question mark is the coaching staff, what kind of offense they will have next season. Who's in the backfield there with Etienne and Bigsby? It probably will be those two again. But yeah, it should be an interesting offseason for the Jags. Over to the Titans side of the ball. Of course, Tony Pollard missed this one, so Spears got the bulk of the work, 20 for 95, and then added 3 for 8 on the ground. So he did get over 100 all-purpose yards. So Spears had a decent game for you if you had to start him. Calvin Ridley, 5 for 84, not too shabby. But yeah, the offense just seemed to run better with Rudolph at the helm. And so that'll be interesting to watch this offseason if they stick with Will Levis or go elsewhere. There. Now. Cleveland, Miami. Another ugly ugly game. Yeah, Tyler Huntley starting for the Dolphins. He had a solid performance, 22 of 26 for 225 and a touchdown. Added 52 yards and a touchdown on the ground. A nice smooth touchdown he had there. Tyreek getting 9 for 105, so he got home for most of you. Jonnu Smith 3 for 26 and a touchdown, and Jalen Waddle sat this one out. Devon Achane, disappointing. Disappointing one for Achane. I had Achane going in a couple of championship lineups, and he's really burned me this week. But it's part of the reason that I got there. So can't win them all. Back to the drawing board. I still love Devon Achane. I don't know that I'm ready to just dip out on him yet because the potential is there for an absolute monster season with Achane and his receiving ability. He's just very exciting player, and so I would personally love to get my hands on more Achane if I can. As for the Browns, just an ugly day all around. 3 points, nothing going on there. I mean, Jerry Jeudy had 12 for 94, but that was it. That was it. Jerry Judy's an interesting case. Where does he get ranked for this offseason? All right, now we'll get to that Packers-Vikings game, which was the late Sunday afternoon main game. Vikings started out hot in this one. They were up early, 20-3. Packers made a little bit of a comeback, make it look close, 27-25. So Vikings move to 14-2 now, and they will take on the Lions for the NFC North title week 18. Both teams at 14-2. We've never seen this before in the NFL where two teams are playing each other this late in the year with that many wins and this much riding on it. The 1 seed is riding on whoever wins this Minnesota-Detroit game this coming week. The 5 seed awaits the loser. So huge shift in playoffs for the loser. The loser of this game has to go on the road and win 3 games, most likely all on the road. And so just a huge game there next week. But in this one, Sam Darnold, 377, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Jefferson, 8 for 92. Naylor, 5 for 81 and a touchdown. And Addison, 6 for 69 and a touchdown. So spreading it out well there. Darnold, 8. Let's look at the target share. 11 of the 43 attempts to Jefferson. 8 for Addison. Hawkinson gets 6 and Naylor gets 5. So did Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones only 47 yards on the ground. Then over to the Packers, you got Josh Jacobs, just 69 yards and a touchdown. Didn't get any receiving yardage this week. So that was definitely a thing that the Vikings concentrated on, was containing Josh Jacobs, and they were able to do that. Jordan Love sort of disappointing here. Only 1 touchdown for 185 yards. And the Packers receivers, nobody really stood out. 7 for 58 for Dobbs. That was about it. Christian Watson sat this one out, so hopefully they have back heading into the postseason. Finally, before we talk about the Monday night game, we'll finish up with the Sunday night game that ended late last night in overtime as the Falcons were able to get back into it on a Michael Penix touchdown, take it into overtime where they did not see the ball. Yep. Jaden Daniels walked him down the field and got a touchdown pass to Zach Ertz to win it for the Commanders, putting the Buccaneers back in control of their own destiny in the NFC South. So a Buccaneers win next week will get them in Atlanta now needs to beat the Panthers and hope the Bucks lose to the Saints. The Commanders now move into the sixth spot, technically ahead of the Packers on a tiebreaker. So the Commanders right now sit in the sixth seed. Packers sit as the seventh seed. And so that big thing there is you're either going to Philly or you're going to go to either the Rams or Tampa. And so it's a big difference. Right now, it looks like the Rams will be the 3 seed. So Washington would travel to the Rams instead of having to go see Philly in round 1 of the playoffs. So the Packers need to hope that the Commanders lose next week and they win so they can move back into the 6th spot and don't have to travel to Philly. As for the stats here, you can see Olamide Zaccheaus continuing his hot streak, 8 for 85 and a touchdown. Did have one touchdown called back late on a holding. So Zaccheaus definitely stepping up his game with teams concentrating more on Terry McLaurin. As you can see, McLaurin there just 1 for 5 with AJ Terrell on him all night. So that's the maturation of a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. He was able to, you know, he targeted McLaurin 7 times, but just because he wasn't able to hit his top guy didn't mean that it was a disaster for them. Found Zaccheaus all night long. Zach Ertz added 6 for 72 and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, monster game for him. And again, Jaden Daniels, rookie of the year for sure, in my opinion. It's, Neighbors has had an amazing season as well. But when you're talking quarterback versus wide receiver, I'm going to lean quarterback all day long just because it's simply a tougher position. As for the Falcons, Michael Penix didn't look terrible. He didn't look like a rookie. I was going to say he looks like a rookie, but he looks like a guy who hasn't played since preseason. Put it that way. All right, but yeah, we'll see if they have more than next week's game. They again need to win, and the Bucks need to lose for Atlanta to win the division now. But as for the rest of the Falcons, Bijan getting things done on the ground, he just there's times where he makes plays that just look where you can tell this guy is one of the top 3 backs in the game. Between him, Saquon, and Jahmyr Gibbs right now, it's hard to say who's the top back. Bijan had this one catch where he had to tip it back to himself to corral it in traffic and then still managed to pick up like 7 or 8 yards on it. It was just one of those plays where, he didn't score a touchdown on it. So it wasn't like a 50, 60-yard touchdown highlight that you see everywhere, but it was just one of those little plays that Bijan makes it show how talented he really is. Drake London played through the injury, got 7 for 106. Kyle Pitts had the big touchdown at the end. They're on 4th down to tie it in regulation. So Pitts going 4 for 44 and a touchdown doesn't look amazing there, but when you take into consideration that he was the one that caught the big touchdown, could be better things on the horizon for Pitts. Be interesting to see how the dynasty market values Pitts this offseason with Penix taking over there in Atlanta. So, yeah, that is the matchups. Now, tonight, we have the Lions traveling back to San Francisco, the site of their debacle in the NFC Championship last season. We'll see if they can win this one and assure that I think even if they lose tonight, next week will still be for the 1 seed. So, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't think that the Vikings, I don't think the Vikings can clinch with a loss by the Lions because I think the Lions have the tiebreaker with the Vikings. So anyway, many of you out there are probably hoping for a big Jahmyr Gibbs performance, or you have Amon-Ra or Goff. maybe one of the Niners. You got Kittle going, Debo, Juwan Jennings, Isaiah Garendo, maybe, um, or Purdy. And so there's plenty of top end talent going tonight, yet if your game is still not decided. So good luck to you. I appreciate you joining all year long. We look forward to talking off-season dynasty very soon. We're going to give out our awards this week to the top fantasy players. And I appreciate you all joining. Don't forget, any questions, send them over to buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And check out my Patreon for the rankings at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. Thank you all for joining. And remember, never stop working.